Yeah, so we start off the conversation with what is happening in Africa while we having all these coup d'etats. Yeah, anyone can just speak.
Okay, I personally think that for these countries that have had successful coups, it's because the civilians are fed up. So, because the civilians cannot take action for themselves, the military decides to do that and then save all of them. So it's like the military is like the Jesus Christ of their time, and then they're excited about it because even if you look at the news, there's like so many inequalities, so many bad stuff happening, and then it looks like it's normal there. So the civilians are excited that the coup is happening. And I think they have every right to be excited. Because if you've been struggling for a long time and then someone comes to save you, like there's everything to be excited about. So yeah.
But when you say if you have been struggling for a long time, it begs the question of struggling in what sense? Is it like poor leadership or economics or what, or social?
Yeah. So poor leadership is more or less like the main factor that brings about a lot of other things. So poor leadership can bring economic issues where because there'll be deflation, there'll be a lot of economic differences, and then these are the reasons. The main reason is the leadership of the countries. So let's look at I think the recent coup d'etat where one particular family has been in like power for decades. Like, how do we allow such thing happen? It's
But
not
he
like
keeps on.
democracy is a monarchy where it's a successive leadership thing with me and my family members.
He's voted into power. That is to be noted because he didn't just say, "Oh, I've been president for this time, so let my son come and be president." There was constitutional reforms, and then he was voted into power again in subsequent times. That is how he appears
Okay,
because
yeah.
it doesn't look like he was running a monarchy. He was running a democracy. But the question is, what kind of democracy?
Another
And-
question too can be that if he or she was voted into power, how come the same people who voted him in, are now happy that there is
He's
coup?
out.
Oh, well, I'm playing the devil's advocate, but how do we know it is the entire nation that was happy? We saw snipers videos of
Yeah.
people happy, but that's not encompassing the whole citizenship, right? Yeah. So, my question is, he is doing this, or he has been in presidency for a very long time because of constitutional reforms, right? And for me, what I want us to clearly talk about is the style of leadership that we are having in our continent, right? So, Kobe, what do you think about democracy in Africa?
So, I mean, to just bring a backdrop to this conversation, I mean, from since time immemorial, anytime you see any social or civil unrest, that eventually leads to what we call a revolution. We've had the French Revolution, the American Revolution. We've had the Arab Spring Revolution, which was
Yeah.
quite recent in the early 2000s coming up. And one thing that is very common, an indicator that's very idiosyncratic to all the activities that you see play out in revolution is what Cherry John Rawlings says. He says there can be no military usurping without the backing of the citizenry. So
Yeah.
anytime there is any coup or there is any form of social unrest that leads to what we call a revolution, you get that inherently the people that are in the society are tired of the systems, every aspect of it, socially, psychologically, mentally, economically, all the facets that makes up a society is not working. Even moral decadence can be a factor that edges people.
Please break down your English for us, okay?
I'm just saying, like, the issue of morality can even be. So I'm just saying that for us to actually narrow the conversation down to what form of leadership, we will need to investigate what are the backdrop of the things that happen for some of these revolutions to happen. And you would find out that it's quite a lot of things put together that will push people. And to address the question of it is not the entirety of the society, trust me, it is the entirety of the society. The people that are not happy that some of these revolutions are happening are the people who are benefiting from the what that was happening in the society. They are mostly the people that are agitating. So one of the diagnoses we can do with respect to leadership in
No,
Africa.
but even before the diagnosis, let's talk about the problem.
So
Let's
that's
talk
what,
about the
yeah,
problem
that's
first.
what I
Or
want
diagnosis is problem.
Probably, I'm trying to diagnose the issue. Like,
Eh,
what's the
break
issue?
your English down for us.
Dissect the
Okay,
issue. I want to
yeah,
dissect the
okay,
issue. So,
okay.
my initial would be our issue with leadership has to do with, I don't call it inadequate leaders. I feel our human capital is not developed to be patriotic. Our human capital is developed to be self-centered. Napari, right now, the whole idea, the whole system from whom you being pushed that if Napari gets there, me too, I go benefit. Napari be my boy. Napari gets family. So these are the inclination. And because we Africans are a communistic people. We are people that have allegiances to communities, not to the society entirely. We have the tendency of always succeeding to the benefit of our community, not to the benefit of the society as a whole. The whole concept of Ubuntu, which is very African, pushes us more communal. So you are more communal. That is your small circle of people you are either related to by blood, related to by association. You are not thinking externally, okay, what is the implication for the society at large? We are not thinking. So most of our human capital is developed to be communal. When you go to America, they say America first, to make America great. The conversation is America, not to make my family. You get in the book. But me, when I was leaving my village to Accra, my family members told me that Kwabena na Beshefie. So I'm working now with Cobra Beshefie. And that is when I wake up in the morning, that's the first thing I remember. Cobra Koshefie. And when they call me, you are doing the next thing. Kaifio. That's the whole conversation. So I'm being groomed and trained mentally. If I become a leader right now, trust me, I will consider my family.
That's true.
I would have to be reoriented to now think about the society at large.
Well, that brings us to a bigger problem of mindset. Because I remember I was having a conversation with a friend, Prempe. Shout out to you. If you watch this episode, you hear. Shout out. Yeah, and we were talking about corruption. And then he told me that, what if the whole notion of corruption, right, is not very centered in the African sense?
True.
Because for Africans, just like Kobe has said, we are communal.
Yeah.
So if I get any opportunity, I won't give my family first. And now we have been introduced to a concept of corruption, which is saying that once I give to my family, what is not due to them, it has a certain tag of it.
Yeah.
But it's not really my fault. I really cannot watch my family go through pain when I have access to the resources that would elevate us from such problems, right? So for me, I think it's very important we speak about these kind of issues because it speaks to a larger picture that people normally do not take into consideration. And that is the concept of corruption. When we say corruption, right, like you are saying, Cobra na Bechifie, doesn't mean that Sawoko that's a unya opportunity be like if you go and then you get any opportunity and even your family is not due it,
I should give it to them.
Should you give it to them?
Wonderful. So
that is like another angle we should look at the conversation.
I understand. I was about to tie into that this is where we should bring a balance. And that's my issue. That's one of my diagnoses for the society we have in Africa.
Okay, so for you, the biggest problem is a communal nature.
One, our human resource is not being trained to be patriotic centered. We are trained to be communal.
Yes. So, you see, not to cut you short again, but then we read a paper in Kwabena and he was talking about consensual democracy. And for me, I felt like the comparison he was trying to draw was very spot on. Why do we have so much allegiance to the chief in our community than the president or than the larger society? So I think it really makes sense.
So that's how we've been. So if we want to begin the conversation of the issues of leadership, we need to visit the foundation. I think most of what we have done in conversation is addressing the issue at the top, but the issue is at the foundational level. Because that is how I've been groomed. That is how I've been trained. That is how I've been trained to perceive that if I get my boy, at least if not my family, my next immediate person be you. Because if it is you, I'll benefit.
Literally or me.
You got a point, like you. Not literally like you.
Yeah, me.
Yeah, not literally like Not figuratively. As in you sitting here and
Okay.
if I get and I give you, I'll benefit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
that's
forget the fact that I owe an allegiance to a flag and to a country called Ghana.
That's
so
true.
if now the conversation cannot be tied to the fact that, Kobe, in as much as you owe allegiance to home, you owe allegiance to the larger community called Ghana. Everything you are doing is going to have an effect on the society. Everything you are doing is going to have an effect. If the conversation begins from there, I think it's going to help the foundational base. Then we can build up on that conversation to lead. That's my issue with direct application of the philosopher king to the African context.
Relax there.
I'm just saying, like, I'm not entering. I'm just trying to say that's one of my issues because one, as a cultural society, we are quite very different, and for our roots tied deep into the concept of Ubuntu, very deep. Like we are deeply ingrained in it, and the issue is that we will not admit it, but every African is nepotistic. Like nepotism is deeply rooted in, and it's not bad.